As you're very welcome to Custy's here, fáiltis fhir of Illig and so go Custy's. Welcome here to Custy's on the 9th of May 2026. What brings the two of you articles into our town?
Oh, looking for money. Now we're here for the Wild Atlantic Music Tour, run by two fellas I'm sure you know well, Robert Hanron and Eddie King.
That's it, and Joe's their first cousin, Robert's.
Oh, right?
Joe.
So we always have a good time with those lads, and they organise these lovely tours, bringing people to witness the music up and down the west coast. So we'll be making our way up to Sligo bit by bit, and then we'll make our way back down, and then we'll see what life has to offer after that.
And the heartstrings have been pulled as the closer you get to your ancestral home, is it?
There you go, yeah.
Where was it your mother?
Both my parents were Sligo people.
What area?
My father was from Dromore West on the coast.
Lovely.
The Sligo coast. My mother was from a place called Mass Hill in the Ox Mountains.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
And usually I'm the sole host musician on these tours, but this time I brought Eamon O'Leary with me.
Yeah, and we know Eamon well from... You were here during COVID, after COVID finished with a friend. You did a pop-up concert down in Parnell Street. It was fantastic.
Oh, great! Yeah, that would have been with my friend Jefferson Hamer.
Yes.
And I remember doing a lovely gig down here. Yeah,
it was.
Two
It was
of
a
us.
beautiful evening.
And we used to come to Ireland almost every year. I'm based out in the States these days, but we used to come, and I have to get him back. It's a few years since we were here together.
Okay.
But I have great memories of playing in this town. All right.
Oh yeah. And we remember you fondly with Live in Mona's, probably the second best live recording ever done of Irish music. Paddy and the Smoke being the first.
Second best.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great to be here, and I've been spending a bit of time in Ennis recently because another one of my musical partners, Nuala Kennedy, is based here in Ennis. So
she is.
I've been here a few times in recent years. And
she's a very gifted individual. You do a lot of work on the stage.
We do. In fact, 2 days ago I just left her 2 days ago in California. We were out there, and now we're going to be reunited tonight.
Oh, lovely!
Yeah,
wow.
So, yeah, no, it's great to be here.
Good. Okay, so you're going to play a few tunes. Oh Prophet, what will you give us today, oh Prophet?
We'll start off with a few jigs. Paddy's Return, Willie Coleman's jig, and Up in the Air, isn't that one? Which is a tune I wrote years ago.
Lovely.
If we can remember it now.
Yeah.
And do those tunes just come to you? Is it like an epiphany and something from on high comes down and the muse descends in your...
Exactly. Yeah. Wings, angelic wings spread and the vision appears.
I see.
The clouds part.
Yeah.
There it is, yeah.
Okay, work away with your alchemy.
All right. How about...
Well played.
Okay. I just have something here, okay, it's probably the second coolest cover album I've ever seen in my life.
The second coolest.
Yeah, the second
Everything
coolest.
is the second best.
Mona's been the first, live at Mona's. This one. Let's go back a while.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about this.
Well, let's see.
If the Cap Fits, that's the album cover.
Yeah, 1978. I think it was Daoine Lunny suggested I do a solo album, and I kind of liked the idea, but I had a few traditional records that I'd like to listen to, but I was very aware that the atmosphere that I experienced when I was learning this kind of music and listening to this kind of music rarely appeared on the record. Now, you mentioned Paddy and the Smoke. See, that had the atmosphere because it was live in the pub, which is its kind of natural surroundings. But in the studio recordings, I was very aware that there'd be a set of jigs, and then it'd stop, and then a set of hornpipes, and it'd stop.
Yes.
And it just seemed a bit antiseptic compared with my kind of emotional response to this kind of music. So I was wondering, how could we get that round that? So I thought, well, one of the things that happens in a session is that you have different players coming in, and the accordion player might start one tune, and the banjo player would start the next tune, and then a flute player might join them for one. And so I decided I'd try that on the different tracks, mix them up a bit. And I'd heard Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles, and I really liked that notion of bleeding one song into the other, like they did. So for one side of the record, we did it. In those days, we had two sides, LPs. I'm that old, So we started off with a slow hornpipes, and then the rest of that side was just one long set of rails with different people kind of drifting in and drifting. The fiddle was the core, the fiddle was there all the way through. But I remember Jackie Daly came in with the accordion and played a couple of tunes, and then he'd kind of fade out, and Peter Brown played on the pipes a couple of tunes, and Paul Brady was there with his mandolin, and it was just coming and going, and then it all faded out at the very end to give you the notion that this never stopped.
Were you happy with the result?
Oh yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's good sport, and of course Daoine was great. Daoine was a lot more experienced than I was at making records. So he put my ideas into practice.
Lovely.
Which was brilliant.
Okay. Great to have an expert.
And Nihal, of course, was on a few of the tracks. It was great playing with him.
Brilliant. And then you get something total mayhem of live at Mona's. And how do you remember much about how that was done? Because we heard roars and screams, we heard pool balls being hit against each other.
Well, the pool players had their league on a Monday night, which was the same night as the session, and they were not to be moved. So that just we tried to go in early a few evenings, and we'd have the mics set up. It was actually the whole thing was the brainchild of our great friend Mick Maloney, who was teaching at NYU. And it was his idea that, because he was a regular visitor to the session, and he used to teach a class on Irish music. And so one of the assignments that he would give his students, these NYU undergraduate students, would be he'd send them out to sessions, and they'd have to come with their notebooks and stuff. And we used to start late on a Monday night. It was 10 or 11 o'clock on a Monday night. We'd get the session started, which is, New York is a late town, as you know. And then Mick hit upon the idea, well, why don't we try to document this? And so he put up the university put up the budget for the recording costs and all that. And so we tried to get in there a bit early before the place got too rowdy. And but it was a great experience. Myself and Patrick Orso, my great friend from France originally, but who lived in New York for many years. And he and I sort of ran that session. We just invited all the regulars and our friends to come in and play, and yeah, it was lovely. It's over more than 20 years ago now.
Yeah. But wasn't that the allure of it? I mean, if you tried to delete that from it, okay, it would.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely wanted to keep that the like as Kevin said, the music in its natural habitat, you know, with the glasses clinking and the pool balls.
The pool.
No,
and who was the winner that night in the pool table?
I couldn't tell you now, to be sure. But no, a lot of great memories of those years that we did that, and nice to have a document.
Yeah.
To remember it by.
Beautiful. Just to get back to Kevin before you play your second set. We used to have a lovely man in here, Martin McMahon from Killimer, I think, the Caravels.
Yeah.
Now, Martin told me a story about your father, and he puts your father down as the person who saved his life. In London in those days, Martin was in a bad way with alcohol, and your father took him by the scruff of the neck and brought him to your house and looked after him and set him in the right path.
Himself and Teresa were frequent visitors to the house, you know, and I don't know if this is totally accurate, but you know, when I was a child, I heard my father telling these different stories, and they get mixed up, you know. But if I'm right, my father was a policeman.
Yes.
And Martin came to London when he was very young. I think he was about 16. And he wasn't there very long when he got arrested for, you know, being in a pub after hours or something, you know. And they put him in the cell. And my father, he was somehow involved, or he knew, he recognised Martin, or he'd seen him playing the previous weekend or something. The cell, anyway, he went to the cell and he says, you know, this is too crowded. We can't have you all in here all together. And we've no other cell. So I'm going to have to let some of you go. And I don't know how to choose. Just something random, like, can anyone here play Irish music on the accordion? Okay, you, out.
Were there any other takers?
There was another time Martin was playing in the street after the pub had closed. You know, the session kind of spilled out. And of course, in London, you know, you weren't supposed to do things like that. And also, you know, certain people were not that friendly towards the Irish, so kind of any excuse to rear up on them. So the session was going on out in the street, and it was down a back street. And someone asked my father to go and stand on the corner to make sure the police don't come. You have to keep an eye out for the cops. Not realising my father was a cop.
He was the lookout.
But yeah, I used to love Martin's playing.
Yes.
I loved it. And Teresa too.
Yes.
You know, Teresa bet him in a competition one time.
Yeah, I heard you told me that. But Martin was a lovely fiddle player. He used to sit down here with the fiddle some
Martin
days.
taught me, showed me how to play rolls.
I see. My God.
And at the time, I don't think I knew he played the fiddle.
Yes.
And again, it was in our house, and I says to him, you know, when I'm playing, it's not quite, it doesn't flow like you're playing does, you know, like there's something not right. And he goes, well, you're not putting in any rolls. And I says, what's that? And he says, give me the fiddle. So I gave him the fiddle, and he goes something like, you know,
yes.
You want to be doing some more of that. And he gave me the fiddle back. That was my lesson. That was my one traditional music lesson. It took about 10 seconds.
Right.
And so for the next week, I'd be playing it, and I'd be hurling my fingers at the string to see, could I make that noise that he, you know.
Right.
Finally, one day, it was like, oh,
That's it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Now how do I do it again? And eventually I got to the point where out of every, I could get out of every 10 attempts, I could get 2 or 3 of them right. You know? And gradually it got to be 5 or 6 out of 10. Or
so what are you up to now?
Oh, I never got beyond 8 out of 10. Could do better.
Lovely. Okay. Oh, what a.
But I loved Martin's playing.
Yeah.
And Teresa was great too. But once the Caravelle thing got going, she spent most of the time on the keyboard.
That's it. Yeah.
And I don't think I heard her playing the box since they were married, basically.
Yeah, no, she played it here. I remember the day the two of them came in, and
really?
She was mouthing about lack of recognition. Said, "Give me that box," and just played away.
Oh,
And I was amazed. Yeah, it was great.
She was very good.
Yeah.
When she was young, she was really good.
My God.
But Martin was kind of special, you know. And I think it was his fiddle playing ability kind of translated to the way he looked at the accordion music, you know.
Okay. And he'd always hummer. He'd be playing here in the accordion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very unusual, but lovely character. Listen, you're going to play another set, and I suppose this will be Iníl Cuimhne Martin in memory of Martin. Okay, so whatever set you're going to play now, with him in mind.
You're putting it up to me.
Your first and only teacher.
Traditional teacher.
Traditional teacher. Okay, excuse me.
Well, I had many teachers really, but they weren't in a position to class themselves as teachers.
Yes.
I learnt rather than being taught.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a lot of great players around, and I just kind of absorbed it from, because I had a classical teacher. So she was a proper teacher, like giving me exercises and deadlines for exams and all this stuff, you know. But for the traditional music, I just had to kind of soak my head in it and try and pick it up. You know.
So what grade did you achieve in your classical exams?
I got to 8.
Oh, that's the ultimate, is it?
And I was playing Mendelssohn's Concerto in E minor, badly, but I got to play through it a few times. You know. So Martin, what about the Maids of Mitchelstown?
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Great tune.
Maids of Mitchelstown.
I usually play it with the
Yep. Lovely. Yeah. Okay. In that order?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Come in, John.
I love these gems. Good deal. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, lads.
Thank you,
Thanks for having us.
You're on this Wild Atlantic tour. You're a veteran of it, Eamon. This is your maiden voyage into it.
First
So,
time, yeah.
what standards do you expect of this fellow? Okay, because you have high standards to maintain.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be. I expect I'll be learning. I'll learn a lot this week. You know.
Lovely.
We don't do standards.
Now, I forgot to talk about your connection and your entry into America through the auspices and the good intentions of Arla Guthrie, but that will wait for the volume 2 of this, which will be
Exactly,
in
yeah.
Studio 2 upstairs sometime in the future. Lads, gur mila maithagibh, thank you very much. Agus Gadeshiv, Slán, Lesh, and Sarah Taroiv, and that you go well
Just
with
One
whatever's
thing
ahead of
before
you.
go. Is this the second best session you've ever had?
I put this without doubt as the best we've ever had on this channel.
That's really.
Lads, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chan.
Good.